In this series, we'll be making a horror game from the ground up and teaching you everything along the way. From researching, theorizing, and prototyping, to main menus, UI, and sound. Join me and follow along to become the master game developer you want to be. Hello everybody and welcome to creating a horror game from scratch. My name's Darkslayer TV and I just took an Adderall. Why is that important? I have my formal ADHD diagnosis and that means that I'm able to operate a lot better, and I have a set schedule, which means Tuesday is YouTube Tuesday. So you'll be getting videos a lot faster, which is good because the duration between these videos has been too long. I know you guys want more, and even coming back to this and trying to continue the progression from the last video into this one easily is difficult because of the duration between the two videos makes me forget what we were even doing. However, I haven't just been doing absolutely nothing. I've been working on my own game and I have learned a lot, which makes me want to go back and fix a lot of the stuff that we did in this game, which is what this episode is going to be. And depending on how long that takes, we may add a few things as well. And just in case you're thinking to yourself, well, I mean, it's working. Yes, everything that we've done is working so far, but remember that some of the stuff we did was quite inefficient. I found way more efficient ways to do it, which means it's just the better practice to start doing it the correct way to begin with. I want to be the YouTuber you can go to who is going to either give you the right information immediately or at minimum come back and make sure that you receive it later. This is my second attempt recording this video, so let me go ahead and start with, if you remember, whenever we have our quadrants here, we did a couple of things. The first thing we did is we ended up having these tags on them, and the tags would be like northwest, northeast, east, west, and basically we had the level then go in and try to find them and order them. We're going to not have it do any of that anymore, and we're going to make it a lot more simple, not only for us, but the efficiency of your code. The first thing you want to do is you want to come up to this little doodad up here, drop it down, and we're going to go into the level blueprint. Because this is my second time recording, you'll notice mine looks a little bit different. It no longer has like path 1 and path 2, or whatever they were called, so you can go ahead and delete those. You're going to go into your event begin play, and you're also going to remove the two that you just deleted from the event begin play, and then you can hook everything back up. Then I would recommend removing the two path variables on the left hand side of your level BP, compile and save it. Now we need to let our ghost know about the new information and how are we going to provide the new information. So, what we need to do is go into my game instance. If yours is like mine, this is pretty much all that should be in it at the moment. You'll see though, however, on the left hand side, I have path 1 and path 2. Go ahead and create those variables by hitting the plus, name it, like I'm just going to pretend there's path 3 real quick. Or, let me fix that. Path 3. Make sure the type is the quadrant BP, and if yours looks like this, make sure you right click it to turn it into an array, and you'll want path 1 and path 2. Go ahead and create a custom event, and we're going to call it add to path 1. On the right hand side, we'll need a couple inputs. Click on the plus, and the first thing we need is a quadrant BP, so make sure yours says quadrant BP. On the right hand side, make sure it is not an array, but a single instead. Then we're going to name this as simple as quadrant. We're going to add another input, and we're going to name this path step. And for this one, we're actually going to make this an integer. We're going to hit compile and save. Now let me explain why we need these two inputs. From add to path 1, we're going to get a reference to path 1 in our variable. So go ahead and drag that out and hit get, pull out of that. And what you're going to do is you're going to type in the word set, and you want set array element. You're then going to plug this in like that. And let's take a look and see what we're doing here. The quadrant is going to be the item that we're adding to the array, and the path step is going to be the index in the array. Why is this important? Essentially, what we're going to do is have the quadrant BP at the event begin play add itself to the path that we set for it. Because in the quadrant BP, we're going to set a variable named path step and add ourself as the quadrant. So since we're not doing this manually, it does need an array index. Otherwise, the path could be in a completely random order because we don't know the order that the game instance is going to receive the path info. One last thing is hit size to fit. And the reason this is important is because if it gets path step 3 first, then it's going to create, or it won't be able to put the path in step 3 because it's not big enough. Even though we know it will be if we numbered it correctly. That's why we're going to go ahead and size it to fit. Grab this whole thing, hit copy and paste. Click on this new custom event, and we're going to call it add to path 2. We're going to delete path 1 reference on the bottom and replace it with the path 2 reference. We're going to create a comment, and we're going to make it say, call these functions when we want to add a quadrant to a path. Compile and save. Now head over to your quadrant BP. What we need to do is we need to create a couple custom events. The first one is going to be getting the game instance ref, which I'm going to name get game instance ref. From there, I'm going to cast to my game instance. Out of the object, I'm going to get game instance, and we're going to promote that to a variable. On the left-hand side, I'm going to rename that game instance ref like that, and we'll comment it getting the game instance reference. At the top, well, you don't have to put it at the top, but I think efficiency's sake, it's better to hold P and click. And you can right click and type event begin play if you want. And you're going to pull out and do get game instance, instance ref. And actually go ahead and drag this out and disconnect this. Hold D on the keyboard and click. So that way there's a 0.2 second delay. Pretty much anytime you have a actor that needs to access a system file. So for example, a game instance, you always want to add a small delay, because you don't know the order in which your computer is going to process the data. So in this case, by delaying by 2.2 seconds, we know that's enough time, and we'll be able to get the game instance ref. Now that we have access to the game instance ref, we're going to create another custom event. This time we're going to call it alert game instance. However, we need to create a couple of variables. We're going to create one, and we're going to name it path 1, and we're going to leave that as a boolean, and we're going to open up the eyeball. We're going to create a new one, and we're going to call this path step, and we're going to make this an integer, and we're also going to open up the eyeball, and we're going to hit compile and save. So when we alert the game instance, we need to know 2 bits of information. The first is this path 1 or 2? So what we're going to do is, because it's only 2 options, is we're going to use a branch. Hold B and click, or just right click and type in branch. And you're going to plug path 1 into the condition. If path 1 is true, then from our game instance ref, we're going to pull out and we're going to type in add to path 1. So if it's true, we're going to add it to path 1. And you'll see that we have a couple bits of information that are required to run this function. These are here because in the my game instance ref, the custom event required input. So what kind of information do we need? Well, we need the quadrant. So if you pull out, just type in the word self, and now it will add itself And we're going to take path point and we're going to plug that into the bottom. It makes a little DNA cluster F here, but it is what it is. Honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and move it around. I don't like it. And if it's not path 1, so it's false, we're going to get the game instance ref again, and we're going to add to path 2 and plug that into false. Again, the quadrant is self, and the path step is just the variable that we created. And we're going to hit compile and save. We're going to grab all of this. We're going to create a comment, and let's kind of explain what's going on. If path 1 is true, then we know we can add ourselves to path 1. If it's false, the only other option is path 2. Yay, let's compile and save that. Now let's go see what's actually happening in our world. So now that we have that new code added, let's take a look. If you click on a quadrant, so if you go over to the right hand side and you just type in the word quadrant, you'll see that there's your quadrants. Go ahead and just click on one of those. I'll click on this east one. If you look in the details panel, you'll see now we have path 1, which is a check mark or not, and path step, which is just a 0. Well, let's take a look at the east quadrant and answer that question. Is it path 1? Well, in this case, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say my right path here is path 1. So yeah, it is path 1. Okay, but what step is it? Well, we have step 1 and we have step 2. But remember, we're dealing with an array. Arrays start at 0. So, even though this is path 1 or step 1 and step 2, remember to subtract 1. So this is step 1, which is position 2. And then we'll head to the northeast one, which is this one. It is also path 1, and it's position 1, so we'll leave it at 0. Now we'll head to the west side. This is not path 1, but it is step 0, so we'll leave it there. This is not path 2, but it is step 1 because it's the second step, which I know is confusing. Blame coding. Now hit Control S to save. Always save. I'm hoping this makes sense. Now let's briefly explain why we just did what we did. Previously, if we would have had to add a quadrant to our level, the level would had to have identified the quadrant itself by searching and then adding it to an array based on tags, which is super slow in terms of coding. I only did it that way because that's the only way I could think to do it at the time. However, my knowledge of the game instance ref, or the game instance, has increased significantly. I want you to imagine the game instance is a set of variables that controls the flow of your game. If a player has an inventory, it should be in the game instance ref. If a door is locked unless you need a key ring, a specific key, that's the game instance ref. If there's paths or things that control the flow of a level, that's the game instance. This prevents you from having to cast from actor to actor to actor to actor to actor, passing all this information around. The reason casting is bad is 1, it's slow, but 2, I'm going to give you a scenario of what is happening in your memory every time you cast. Let's say you go to order a pizza. In this case, the pizza is a simple variable. If you do a cast, instead of ordering the pizza, you are bringing the entire pizza place to your house. So in memory, instead of just receiving the variable, you are receiving the entire file. Now, if 4 different things cast to the same thing, that means that that one thing is now in your memory 4 times. The engine isn't smart enough to look and go, oh, this has been casted to before. I already have it. It doesn't do that. Which brings me back to the game instance. It is smart enough to not duplicate the game instance over and over and over again, which means whenever we keep casting to the game instance and creating references to it, we're not filling up our memory to the brim with repeated information. This also makes saving the game super easy. Saving a game is essentially just taking variables and saving them locally, and then when the level loads, it then looks at those variables and adjusts itself to match. Well, if all of your inventory and level flow is in the game instance, it's much easier to save because all your variables are there and ready to go. One last point about the game instance and we'll move on. All variables, including the player, are reset if you switch levels. The game instance does not reset variables. Now this can cause problems because if we need it to, we will have to tell it to do it. But a good example would be if you're playing Amnesia: The Dark Descent and you have X amount of oil and you go to the next level, if that variable was saved on the player, all that oil would be gone because it reset. But if it was in the game instance, you would still have your oil. I hope that all makes sense. I know this is more of a lesson than the actual engine, but it's very important. So our paths have to do with 1, level flow, but 2, the efficiency of our code has just went through the roof compared to how we had it set up. Now, let's go take a look at our parent ghosts because they are now coded incorrectly. Let's go to the parent ghost and take a look why. First off, I'm gonna go ahead and make this way better to look at, and I'll show you how I did it when I'm back. Okay, so let's take a look and see what I did. Basically, I just took all this code, and if I zoom in here, you'll see that this is now ghost events. Any type of ghost event is going to be within this red comment. Now we also have pathing, and we have begin, play, and game instance ref. So I left pathing white because what we're gonna do is I'm gonna teach you how to do this. If you just click on pathing and you come over here on the comment color and click on the white, you can now set it to anything. I'm gonna go ahead and set this one to blue, I think. So there. Now look, if we look, we can see here's all the pathing stuff, here's the ghost event stuff, and then I always just leave this kind of stuff white and like ungrouped at the top. That's my preference, but you can see now we can navigate this much faster, and we can even create more subgroups if we wanted to. But anyway, let's take a look and see what our ghost is doing and how we need to adapt it. So we'll head over to the blue and take a look at the pathing. Now, this is where things were really messed up. This is like, oh God, this is so bad. Okay, so you can see whenever we get path, if you look, get all actors of class was tagged northwest, get it with tag west, and we went and did all this stuff, and then we said go down path, and then we got, this might actually not have to change much. We'll take a look at that in a moment, but this is dreadful. Anytime you get all actors of class, it is a slug on your system. Delete all of this except for get path. Luckily, it starts with the game instance ref, so we don't have to worry about that. But what we need to do is we need to run a little bit of random logic so it chooses either path 1 or 2. Luckily, as you know, if we just hit B and click, we'll get a branch, and then we easily have 2 options. However, we need to create the random logic that chooses true or false. Right click and just type in the word random int and you'll get random integer. But sorry, don't click that. You want random integer in range. Drag that to the left so it's nice and lined up. Now you'll want a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 1. That's a 50-50. It's either going to get 0 or 1 every single time. Out of the return value, type in the word equal and click on equal. And it's as simple as, does it equal 0? Half the time it will, half the time it won't. Roughly, of course. If it is 0, we're gonna get our game instance ref. From the game instance ref, we are going to type in get path 1. And on the left, we'll pull out of path and we're gonna hit set. Plug true into set, plug path 1 into path. And we'll do essentially the same thing on the bottom, but with path 2. get the game instance ref, get path to, and set path. And it's that easy. Look how much less code this is. And we know it's a lot more efficient. Let's go ahead and comment this and hit get and set path. The last thing I want to check is right here. So this is before I knew better, so I apologize. Let's move this whole thing left like that. Well, actually I take that back. Just that. Let's create some space here and unclick this. Hold D and click and check it out. We're gonna add another delay here. The bigger your game gets, the longer that delay might need to be. So if you ever have issues with it just being like, I can't find this or whatever, and it doesn't make sense, try adding a small delay. Now, we actually want this to be slightly longer, just slightly. So we'll turn this to 0.3. And the reason we want that to be 0.3 is because if you remember, we aren't setting the path at, we're setting the path at 0.2. So if we go to Quadrant BP and we go up to the top here, you'll see the delay is 0.2, which I just realized an error. Head back to your Quadrant BP. We never alerted the game instance on the end of this. So pull out, alert game instance. Glad I caught that early. So we're delaying 0.2 here, and then another 0.1 seconds later, we are getting a path and doing ghost events and stuff. Perfect. Compile and save. Now let's take a look, go down path, just make sure it's good. We get our path that we set. We get the ghost current path point, which is fine. We'll move to its world location. Perfect. We wait. We get the next one. We go down path again. Yeah, this is perfect. I mean, obviously we're still gonna hit the end of the array, which means it's eventually gonna throw an error. We'll fix that later, but for now, ghost should work. Let's go take a look. Let's see if our code ended up working. Let's hit play. And let's take a look and see if we can find our ghost. The ghost isn't going down the path, so that's perfect. Let's hit escape and see what the error is. Access none, trying to read property, get array item, AI, move to event graph. All right, let's take a look at this. So let's click on AI move to. And it's saying it received nothing. Probably from the destination. Okay, I believe I found the issue. If you take a look here, I'm in the ghost BP. So this is ghost 1. This isn't the parent, but the child. The first thing it does is go down path. Well, remember how I said we don't know the order in which things are going to load? In this case, we do a little bit because we set the delay. But remember, there's a delay. So because this is immediately telling it to go down the path, let's take a look at parent ghost for just a second so we can fully understand it. The parent ghost, or whatever the ghost 1 is inheriting, is it doesn't get the game instance ref, the path, or its ghost events for at least 0.3 seconds. So whenever the ghost is spawning immediately, even though the parent is waiting for all that stuff, the child is just go. So what we need to do is we need to put this to like 0.35, like that, and hit compile and save. Now it should work. Check the camera. I might have went to the other side. And there he is. Check it out. Amazing. And just because I don't want to leave you guys without adding anything new, we're going to add something really simple. I'm going to go ahead and close all these tabs out. We're going to go into our first person blueprints, first person character, go to the viewport, and let's add something fun. In the components up here, click add, and you're going to type in spot. Oh, I put spot. And now we're going to add a spotlight, and we're going to call that flashlight. And what you're going to do is you're actually going to drag it and make it a child of the first person camera. Then we're going to drag it and move it up so that way it looks kind of like that. So it looks like it's coming out of the face of the camera. Then what we're gonna do is on the right hand side, take that outer cone angle and make it like 20. Then take the attenuation radius and make it like 1500 and hit compile and save. And we just made a real quick, simple flashlight to make looking around easier. Obviously we can make this a lot more visible if we need to, but all right, we officially have our first little flashlight. I hope you guys learned something today. I hope you understand why we went back and fixed that. I hope you understand that this is a normal part of game development. You're gonna get so far in, you're gonna have to go back and fix things. I hope you learned something. That's the main thing. And again, YouTube Tuesday, it's here and it's here to stay. So like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for continuing to support the series, and I'll see you guys in the next one.